Hi everyone, I'm Jane Trotter and welcome to Accelerando Piano. Are you having trouble remembering the key signatures of your scales? Are you being driven up the wall every time you practice them? Don't despair. I've got some tips and shortcuts which will make working out and remembering your key signatures much easier. My students frequently tell me that one of the hardest things about playing scales is remembering the key signatures. In other words, remembering the sharps or flats you have to include in the scale. Or, to put it even more simply, remembering which black keys to play. They ask, why do we practice scales anyway? Well, one of the most important reasons is to help identify and reinforce the key of the piece you're playing. For example, when we say a piece is in the key of D major, it means that the piece primarily uses notes found in the D major scale. D major contains an F sharp and a C sharp in the key signature. So those notes will be occurring throughout the music. Think of it as a shortcut. Being familiar with your D major scale means you already know in advance the sharps involved and what D major feels like under your fingers. If you practice your scales regularly and they're all in order, you'll find it much easier and quicker to learn your pieces. So, with that in mind, and speaking of shortcuts, here are some neat tricks to help you work out and remember the sharps and flats in your scales. In order for these shortcuts to work, you need to know the order of sharps or flats as they appear in the key signature. They have a very specific order, and I have a neat little mnemonic to help you remember them. Here's the order of sharps: F, C, G, D, A, E, B. For this, I use the phrase, Fred cat goes down and eats burgers. When I was a student decades ago, I had a cat called Fred, so my teacher and I came up with this phrase which was particularly relevant to me. As you can see, it's stuck all of these years. Of course, you can make up any phrase you like. Get creative. Let's move on to the flats. The order you'll see flats written in a key signature is B, E, A, D, G, C, F, which happens to be the order of sharps backwards. Poor Fred has overeaten and needs a lie down. Burgers eaten and down goes Cat Fred. You'll also spot that the first four letters spell out the word bead. Knowing these is the first step in beginning to work out your scales key signatures. Those of you with a more advanced knowledge of theory may be thinking about the cycle of fifths. It is related, but I'm going to save that for a different discussion in a future tutorial. For now, we're just going to concentrate on some simple rules and shortcuts to help work out and reinforce key signatures, so playing scales becomes much easier. I'll be using lots of slides during the course of the tutorial, and for your reference, I've compiled them all together into a download, which you can get from the resources page on my Accelerando Piano website. There's a link in the description below. I'd encourage you to download this at the end of the video, so you'll have all the information you need when you next go to practice your scales. Okay. Let's have a look at the major scales which contain sharps in their key signatures. You know a major scale will contain sharps because it usually begins on a white key, like G or B. There are a couple of exceptions to this, C major being the most obvious, and I'll cover these scales a bit later on. For the moment, let's keep it simple and establish our rule for major scales with sharps. First off, find the key note or home note of your scale, and then go down a semitone. Say through the Fred cat mnemonic and stop when you reach the letter name of this note. All the letter names before and including the letter name you stopped on will be in the key signature. Let's have a look at D major. Find your D and go down a semitone to C sharp. Remember, a semitone is the smallest distance between two notes on the keyboard. Now, say the order of sharps mnemonic and stop when you arrive at C. You'll have said Fred cat. Those two sharps, F and C, are the key signature of D major. How about B major? Find your B. Go down a semitone to A sharp. Say the Fred cat phrase until you reach the word beginning with A. Fred cat goes down and. B major contains 5 sharps: F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, and A sharp. Remember I mentioned earlier that there were a couple of exceptions to major keys with sharps beginning on a white key. Here they are. C major, probably the first scale we all learn. C major's actually got nothing in the key signature, no sharps or flats. This makes it a particularly easy scale to remember and a good choice for when we're just starting out. Then there's F sharp major and C sharp major. Fortunately, we know they're going to contain sharps in their key signatures because they've got a sharp in their title. The same rule applies for working them out. Go down a semitone from the home note. Say through Fred cat until you reach the letter name of this note, and that will be all the sharps in the key signature. Let's take a look at F sharp major. A semitone lower than F sharp is E sharp. Be aware, in this key, the 7th note of the scale is E sharp and not F natural. Why? Put simply, a scale must contain one note of each letter name. If we go up the last 3 notes in F sharp major, we would say D sharp, E sharp, and F sharp. We can't call the E sharp F natural because then we wouldn't have any E. Okay, so we've worked out that E sharp is a semitone below F sharp. If we say through the phrase, we get Fred cat goes down and eats. F sharp major will have 6 sharps: F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, and E sharp. And finally, there's F major, which I'm going to talk about in the next section on major keys with flats. Before I leap into the rule for working out major scales containing flats, there's one scale which needs special attention: F major, the one I teased you with just before. You'd think that F, being a white key, would have a sharp in its key signature, but it doesn't. It has B flat, so it's a little bit different. But I've got a neat tip for remembering this odd one out. The letter F begins the word flat, so you can say to yourself, F has to be flat. Okay, let's get stuck into the other major keys with flats. The biggest giveaway is going to be in their title: B flat major, D flat major. So, how can we work out what flats are involved for each key? Basically, to work out the key signature for a major key with flats, think of your order of flats. Find the letter name of the scale you want. The key signature will include all the flats up to that letter name plus the flat of the next letter in the sequence. For example, let's take E flat major. We're going to think about our mnemonic for flats. Burgers eaten and down goes cat Fred. Because we want to work out E flat major, we're going to go as far as the word eaten, as that's our E. Then we add on the next word in the sequence, and. That gives us a grand total of 3 flats in the key signature: B flat for burgers, E flat for eaten, and A flat for the and. What about D flat major? Start saying the phrase, go as far as down, as that's the D, then add one more. Burgers eaten and down goes. D flat major will have 5 flats: B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and G flat. Those are our shortcuts for working out the major scales. But what about the minors? Well, there's only one rule you need to remember. Go up 3 semitones from the key note or home note of the minor key you want to work out. The note you land on will be the major scale with the same key signature. It's called the relative major. Work out the key signature for that major key and hey presto, it will be the same as the minor key. Here are a couple of examples. If you want to play F sharp minor but are struggling to remember the key signature, go up 3 semitones to the note A. This is the relative major. We do our trick for major scales with sharps. Go down a semitone from A, it's a G sharp. Say through our Fred cat phrase until we get to the word beginning with G. Fred cat goes. A major has 3 sharps, F sharp, C sharp and G sharp. F sharp minor will have those same 3 sharps. Remember though, these scales aren't exactly the same because they begin on different notes. A major begins on an A and F sharp minor starts with an F sharp. Let's do another one. F minor. Drawing a mental blank? Fear not. Go up 3 semitones to A flat. Do the trick for major scales with flats. Say through the phrase for the order of flats. Burgers eaten and down goes Cat Fred. Stop on the word 1 past the A. Burgers eaten and down. A flat major has 4 flats. B flat, E flat, A flat and D flat. And so will F minor. You may or may not be aware there are different forms of a minor scale. The natural, harmonic and melodic minor. Particularly if you're playing the harmonic or melodic form, you will need to make some alterations to the scale as you play it. For instance, in the harmonic form, the 7th note of the scale gets raised a semitone. This is quite a big topic, which I'm not going to go into here, but I do have a comprehensive tutorial which explains it all, called Natural, Harmonic and Melodic Minors. What's the difference? Resource pages for this tutorial can also be downloaded from my Accelerando Piano website. I strongly recommend that you delve into this video too if you want to broaden your understanding of minor scales and how they work. Rest assured, the trick of working out a minor scale's key signature by going up 3 semitones to find its relative major applies to all 3 forms of the minor scale. Here's a chart of the relative major and minor scales. I've included this in the download. You can see all the key signatures are there, along with the associated scales. I'd like to draw your attention to this neat trick. Remember our rule of going up 3 semitones to find the relative major of a minor key. If we want to know the key signature of C minor, we go up 3 semitones to E flat. C minor and E flat major will both have 3 flats. The reverse works too. If we start with a major key and want to know the minor key with the same key signature, do the opposite. Go down 3 semitones. Let's use the same example. If we're playing E flat major and want to know the minor scale with 3 flats, go down 3 semitones to C. There you have it. These shortcut rules will allow you to work out the key signature of any major or minor scale quickly and easily before you have to play it. Scales can be frustrating if you're constantly guessing what notes to play, quite apart from making sure your fingering is correct too. Knowing your key signatures in advance will allow you to focus more on your fingering and hand coordination, so you can perform your scales with greater confidence and security. Very importantly, Knowing your scales and key signatures will help enormously when it comes to learning new pieces. You'll already have a map in your mind and under your fingers for the patterning and feel of the notes in the required key. Remember, you can go to the resources page on my Accelerated Piano website and download the resource for this tutorial. I've collated all of the slides and information so you can have this on hand when you're practicing. I've included a link in the description below. And I've got lots of tutorials on individual scales if you're wanting some extra help or need a brief refresher course on a particular key. There are also some videos on technique and scale fingering patterns. Whee! All of that's going to keep you busy. I hope these shortcuts will make practicing your scales more accurate and secure, and ultimately more enjoyable and satisfying.